At 5:43 in the afternoon, I opened my eyes and heard Ethan Cole say the exact sentence he had said 4 hours before I died. "Nora, you seriously packed 6 pairs of socks for one night." For several seconds I couldn't move. The zipper of my duffel bag was open beneath my hands. My gray hiking jacket lay across the bed. Outside the lodge window, late September sunlight poured across the San Juan Mountains, turning the aspens gold. Ethan stood beside the bathroom door in the green flannel shirt I remembered, not remembered vaguely, remembered exactly. The sleeves rolled twice, the small tear near his left cuff, the silver watch I had given him on our 3rd anniversary. My lungs stopped working. The last thing I remembered was darkness, wet dirt beneath my fingernails, a beam of moonlight far above me, Chloe shouting that they had to leave, Ethan saying, "We can't explain why we were out here." Then another cracking sound underneath the mountain. I had screamed his name. Neither of them came back. "Nora." Ethan snapped his fingers. I flinched so hard that he frowned. "You okay?" I stared at the man I had loved for 4 years in less than 5 hours. He was supposed to kiss my best friend behind the old service shed. I was supposed to see them, I was supposed to follow, and before midnight I was supposed to die beneath Black Hollow. "I think I'm sick," I said. The lie came out almost calmly. Ethan's expression changed immediately, not concern, annoyance. "What?" "My stomach." "You were fine at lunch." "I know." I bent forward and pressed a hand against my abdomen. In my first life, I had gone on the overnight camp because Ethan had insisted the entire ArcLight management team needed to participate. It was supposed to be harmless corporate bonding, 10 employees, 1 lodge, a guided night camp 2 miles from the main property. Ethan had called it romantic. Chloe had laughed and told me I was getting old because I wanted a real mattress. I remembered every word. This time I let my face go pale. That part required no acting. "I don't think I can hike tonight." Ethan checked his phone again, annoyance. "You can't stay here alone." "I'll stay at the lodge. The whole point is that everybody participates. I'll survive missing one campfire." His jaw tightened. That tiny reaction told me more than 4 years of conversations ever had. My absence disrupted something in my first life. He had wanted me at the camp. Later, after Chloe whispered something to him, they had slipped away together maybe. They had planned the affair meeting knowing I would be occupied with everyone else. Maybe they had never expected me to follow, but they had definitely expected me to be where they had placed me. I stood, my knees nearly gave out. Ethan caught my elbow. His touch made my skin crawl. "You really are shaking." "I told you." For once, his selfishness helped me. Nobody wants to argue too long with someone claiming stomach trouble. "I'll tell Chloe," he said. I looked at him. "Why Chloe?" He paused, "Just long enough, because she'll worry." Of course she would. My best friend since sophomore year of college, the woman who had held my hair when I was sick, slept on my couch after my mother died, and once told me Ethan was the safest man I would ever meet. 3 hours from now, she would have her hands inside his jacket. "Tell everyone I need sleep." "Nora, please." He studied me, then he kissed my forehead. I almost recoiled. "Fine, text me if you get worse." The door closed behind him. I locked it, then I ran to the bathroom and vomited. That part wasn't fake. For 10 minutes, I knelt on cold tile while 2 lifetimes collided inside my head. I remembered the fall. I remembered how long I had been conscious. I remembered hearing Ethan and Chloe above me. Chloe had been crying. "We call rescue, they'll ask why we're here." She fell. She saw us. She'll tell everyone. Then silence, then Ethan. "Let's get back to camp first. We can say she wandered away later." I had not understood those words until now. I had spent my final minutes believing Ethan would return, even after he left me. That humiliation hurt almost more than dying. A knock came at my door. I froze. "Nora?" Not Ethan, a woman's voice. "Ruth Benton, the lodge manager." I opened the door 3 inches. Ruth stood in the hallway holding a bottle of electrolyte solution and 2 packets of crackers. She was in her 60s, with silver hair cut bluntly at her jaw and the watchful eyes of someone who had once worked in medicine. "I heard you're under the weather." "Just my stomach." "Fever?" "No." "Pain on the right side?" "No." "Any chance you're pregnant?" Despite everything, I almost laughed. "No." "Good, sit, hydrate. If the pain localizes or you can't keep fluids down, tell me." She handed me the bottle. Then her gaze stayed on my face. "You look scared." My fingers tightened around the plastic. "I'm sick." That wasn't what I said. For one dangerous second, I wanted to tell her everything. Instead, I whispered, "I had a bad dream." Ruth considered that. Mountains make people feel small. Sometimes that shakes loose things we've been ignoring. Before leaving, she added, Don't go wandering after dark. County Crew's closed part of Black Hollow this afternoon. My blood went cold. What happened? Ground movement near the old mine. The hallway seemed to tilt. I stopped. Ruth waited. When did they find it? Yesterday's inspection. Engineer came up this morning. They're doing a more detailed survey tomorrow. What's the engineer's name? She thought. Caleb Rowan. My heart slammed once against my ribs. Caleb. I had not spoken to him properly in nearly 5 years. In college, he had been the person I called when my car died, when I failed organic chemistry, when my mother had her first surgery. He had also been the man who almost kissed me outside a Denver coffee shop 3 weeks before Ethan asked me on our first date. Then Caleb had disappeared from my life, or so I had believed. In my first life, I remembered seeing his name on a county sign near the closed trail. I had barely noticed. Now it felt like someone had placed a door in front of me. I picked up my phone. Caleb's old number was still buried in my contacts. I stared at it for almost a minute. Then I pressed call. He answered on the 4th ring. Hello? His voice was deeper than I remembered. Caleb. Silence. Nora. My throat tightened. I need to ask you something, and I need you not to think I'm crazy. That is an impressive opening. After 5 years. There was no anger in his voice, only caution. I closed my eyes. Black Hollow, is it dangerous tonight? The change in him was immediate. Why? Answer me. Yes. How dangerous? Nora, where are you? Kestrel Ridge. Another silence, then a chair scraped on his end. Are you near the closure? No. Stay that way. What did you find? A void beneath the west service path, old ventilation rays, timber cap is failing. My hand started shaking. Could someone fall through? Yes. And survive. Depends where. I pressed my palm against the wall. In my first life, nobody had known exactly where I fell for 2 days. My body was recovered after the second collapse. Caleb's voice sharpened. Nora, why are you asking me this? Because I died there, because the man I loved watched me fall, because my best friend chose her reputation over my life. Instead I said, 2 people may go there tonight. Who? I don't know yet. That wasn't entirely a lie. I knew who. I did not know if history would repeat itself. Exactly. Caleb exhaled. We put up hard barriers at 5. If someone crosses them, that's intentional trespass. Are you nearby? County office in Silverton. How long? 25 minutes. I may call you again. Nora? Yes. You sound terrified. I said nothing. His next words were quiet. If something is wrong, don't prove it by putting yourself in danger. My eyes burned. That was exactly what I had done last time. I won't. At 7:15 the camping group left. I watched from behind my curtain. Ethan carried 2 packs. Chloe wore the red knit hat I had bought her last Christmas. She turned once toward the lodge. For a moment, I thought she was looking at my window. Then she smiled at Ethan. The sun went down at 7:42. At 8:56, I saw 2 figures return along the side path, not toward the lobby, toward the equipment shed. I turned off every light in my room. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it. Ethan appeared first beneath the amber security lamp. Chloe followed. He said something. She slapped his arm playfully, then he pulled her toward him. The kiss lasted 11 seconds. I counted. Maybe because some part of me needed precision. Maybe because grief becomes easier to hold when you can measure it. 11 seconds. For years of my life ended in 11 seconds. When they separated, Chloe rested her forehead against his chest. Ethan looked toward the lodge. Then they walked beyond the shed, toward the old service road, toward Black Hollow. In my previous life, this was when I had followed. I had run outside without a jacket. I had needed an explanation. I had needed Ethan to look me in the eye and tell me how long. This time, I stayed behind the glass. My hand trembled as I called Caleb. He answered immediately. They're going toward Black Hollow. Who? My boyfriend and my best friend. A pause. Caleb did not ask the obvious question. Instead he said, can you see whether they're past the maintenance gate? I moved to the far window. 2 dark shapes disappeared behind the trees. Yes. Stay inside. I am. I mean it, Nora. I know what's out there. His breathing stopped for half a second. What does that mean? Before I could answer, a sound rolled through the mountain, low, deep, not thunder. I knew that sound, timber breaking underground. Then, from somewhere beyond the trees, a woman screamed, Chloe. Every muscle in my body tried to move toward the door. Memory told me to run. Fear told me someone was dying. But I gripped the phone. Caleb's voice came hard and clear. Nora, do not go after them. I closed my eyes. This was the first moment my new life truly began. I won't. And for the first time I meant it. Caleb reached Kestrel Ridge 17 minutes later with 2 county rescue volunteers and a truck full of equipment. I knew because I watched the headlights cut across the lodge parking lot. Ruth had already called 911 after hearing the scream. By then I had told her 2 guests had gone toward the closed mine trail. I did not tell her how I knew where they were going, not yet. Caleb came through the lobby wearing a dark rescue jacket with reflective lettering across the back. For one strange second, seeing him felt more unreal than waking from the dead. 5 years had sharpened him. He had always been tall, but now there was a contained steadiness in the way he moved. His dark hair was shorter, a faint scar crossed his chin. He looked tired, competent, and completely unlike Ethan. His eyes found me immediately. Nora, Caleb. That was all we had time for. A deputy arrived behind him. Caleb turned to Ruth. Which guests? Ethan Cole and Chloe Mercer. Anyone see them cross the closure? I raised my hand. I saw them take the service road. The deputy looked at me. From where? My room. Why were you watching? The question was reasonable. It still made my stomach twist. They came back from the camp. I saw them behind the equipment shed. I stopped there. Caleb understood anyway. His eyes shifted toward the window. Did they have lights? 1 headlamp maybe. 2 phones. Any alcohol? Ethan had been drinking earlier. Caleb's mouth tightened. He pulled a map from his pack and spread it over the lobby desk. West Service Road runs here, closure gate here. The subsidence zone begins another 400 yards north. I recognized the shape of the trail. My fingertips went numb. In my first life, I had run past that gate without even noticing it. A faded warning sign had been hanging crooked from one chain. Tonight, there should have been a solid barrier. Someone cut the chain, a rescue volunteer said from the radio. Caleb looked up sharply. Repeat. West gate, chain's been cut. The room went silent. My first thought was Ethan. My second was that I had no proof. Caleb picked up the radio. Do not enter the marked timber zone until I arrive. Approach from South Ridge. He looked at me. Stay here. I know. His eyes held mine for an extra second. Maybe he was remembering the girl who used to ignore every sensible instruction he gave. Then he left. For the next 30 minutes, the lodge lobby became a place where time stretched into painful pieces. Ruth made coffee. Nobody drank. The deputy took my statement. I told him exactly what I had seen. I did not say I had died there before, obviously. I said Ethan and Chloe had returned separately from the group and met behind the equipment shed. I said they kissed. I said they walked toward the closed trail. The deputy paused. You're Ethan's girlfriend. Was. He lifted his eyebrows but did not comment. Any reason they'd go toward the mine? I don't know. That answer felt honest in this life. At 10:02 the radio cracked. Contact with one subject. I stopped breathing. Ruth put a hand on my shoulder. Female conscious. Chloe. Another voice followed. Second subject located, lower shelf, possible ankle injury. Ethan alive. Relief came first. I hated that it did. Then I remembered myself screaming in the dark while they walked away. My relief disappeared. The rescue took another hour. Chloe had stepped onto a rotting timber cover near the edge of the old ventilation raise. The wood had given way beneath one leg, dropping her into loose debris up to her waist. Ethan had grabbed her. The ground beneath him then slumped, leaving him stranded several feet below the path on a shelf of rock and collapsed soil. If they had continued another 15 feet, Caleb later told the deputy, the result could have been fatal. The vertical shaft beneath the next section dropped more than 80 feet. In my previous life I had made it farther. I knew exactly where. At 11:18 headlights appeared. Chloe was brought in first, wrapped in a rescue blanket. Mud covered one side of her face. She saw me. Her expression changed. Fear, then calculation. Nora. I stood. She began crying immediately. Oh my God. I didn't move toward her. The old Nora would have. The old Nora would have wrapped her arms around Chloe even after seeing the kiss. That realization almost made me laugh. Chloe's tears slowed. You saw? Yes. Her eyes flicked toward Ruth and the deputy. I mean, you saw us go up there. I saw enough. Her face drained. Ethan arrived 5 minutes later. His left ankle was splinted, though he could bear some weight with help. The moment he saw me, anger replaced pain. What the hell, Nora? The deputy turned. Ethan seemed to remember where he was. He lowered his voice. You knew we were out there. Yes. And you just stayed here. Caleb walked in behind him. Mud streaked his rescue trousers. His expression went flat. She called before the collapse. Ethan looked at him, then at me. What? Caleb removed his gloves. Your girlfriend notified me that 2 people were heading toward the closed mine. That call is the reason a rescue team was already moving when the ground failed. Ex-girlfriend. I said. Chloe stared at me. Ethan looked like I had slapped him. Nora, can we not do this right now? Do what? You're upset. I watched you kiss Chloe. Ruth quietly stepped away. The deputy remained. Good. Let there be witnesses. Ethan inhaled. Slowly. It wasn't what you think. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I heard that sentence for what it was, not an explanation, a delay, a way to keep me emotionally engaged long enough for him to construct a better lie. I think your mouth was on hers. Chloe closed her eyes. Nora? No. One word, that was all. She stopped. Ethan's face hardened. We had both been drinking. You walked half a mile toward a restricted mine after cutting a chain. His eyes moved too quickly. There, a flicker. You think I cut it? I didn't say you did. Caleb looked at him. Ethan realized his mistake. I mean, obviously somebody did. The deputy wrote something down. Chloe started shivering. Ruth immediately switched back into medical mode. She needs to get checked. An ambulance had been dispatched for precautionary evaluation because of possible cold exposure and soft tissue injury. Ethan refused transport at first. The deputy strongly recommended he go. Eventually they both left before Chloe was taken. Outside, she grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were freezing. Nora, please. I looked down at her hand. She released me. Please don't tell everyone until we can talk. There it was. Not I'm sorry, not I hurt you, not you saved my life. Please don't tell everyone. I stepped back. You should worry about your leg. Her mouth opened. I walked away. Caleb found me 15 minutes later on the back porch. The mountain was black except for a thin stripe of moonlight over the ridge. I hated the darkness now. He stopped several feet away. You're not wearing a coat. I forgot. Without approaching, he placed his spare rescue jacket over the back of a chair beside me. I looked at it, still bossy, still refusing to listen. Not tonight. No. His voice softened. Not tonight. I pulled on the jacket. It smelled faintly of cedar and cold air. For a while neither of us spoke. Then Caleb asked, how did you know? I had prepared several lies. None came. I knew something bad would happen if I went after them. That isn't an answer. I know. He rested his forearms on the railing. You called me about the ventilation rays before they reached it. Yes. We hadn't published the exact location. I know. His head turned toward me. I stared into the dark trees. Are you in trouble? The question surprised me. What? Did Ethan threaten you? Did Chloe tell you something? Is someone at Arclight involved with the closure? No. Then help me understand. I couldn't, not without sounding insane, so I said. The closest thing to the truth. I had a very clear picture of what would happen if I followed them. Caleb studied my face. A premonition. Something like that. He should have laughed. He didn't. Instead he said, then I'm glad you listened to it. My throat tightened. I looked down. You don't think I'm crazy? I think 2 people ignored a closure and nearly died. That wasn't my question. No. He turned toward me fully. I don't think you're crazy. Something inside me broke, not loudly, just enough for tears to fill my eyes. I had not cried when I watched Ethan kiss Chloe. I had not cried during the rescue. But Caleb believing me without demanding a perfect explanation hurt in a completely different way. I wiped my face quickly. Sorry. You don't have to apologize. I hate crying in front of people. I remember. Of course he did. 5 years vanished for 1 second, then reality returned. I handed his jacket back. Thank you for coming. I was doing my job. You answered my call. His fingers closed around the jacket. Nora? Yes. Whatever happened tonight, don't let Ethan convince you that you caused it. I froze. He does that. Caleb's expression changed, not surprise, recognition. He used to. A strange coldness moved through me. What does that mean? Caleb looked toward the lobby. Not tonight. Why? Because you're shaking. He's injured and you just ended a 4-year relationship. He gave me the first almost smile I had seen. I've gotten better at timing. Then he walked away. I watched him go. Behind us, somewhere under the mountain, the earth shifted again, a distant crack. This time I was standing safely above it. And Ethan was the one who had almost disappeared into the dark. Ethan called me 14 times before noon the next day. I answered none of them. Chloe sent 6 messages. The first said, please let me explain. The second, it only happened because everything has been complicated lately. By the fourth, she had moved on to blame. You disappeared from camp. Without talking to anyone, Ethan was worried. We were both emotional. I stared at that message for a long time. Apparently my fake stomachache had forced my boyfriend's tongue into my best friend's mouth. Good to know. I took screenshots. Then I exported the message thread. That was one of the first useful things death taught me. Memory feels powerful until someone lies confidently enough. Evidence is better at breakfast. Ruth placed oatmeal and coffee in front of me. You slept? About an hour. Better than none. She sat across from me. The management retreat had been cancelled. Everyone from ArcLight was packing. Rumors were spreading. Nobody yet knew the full story. I need to ask you something, I said. Ruth nodded. Did you actually believe I was sick yesterday? One eyebrow rose. No, I almost smiled. Why didn't you say anything? Because I've seen frightened people claim headaches, stomachaches, chest pain, and all kinds of things when what they really need is a locked door. Her expression softened. You needed a locked door. I looked down at my coffee. Yes. Then you got one? That was Ruth. No interrogation, no drama, just a door. When I returned to my room, Ethan was waiting in the hallway on crutches. I stopped 10 feet away. You shouldn't be here. We need to talk. No? His mouth tightened. Nora? You're blocking my room. I spent half the night in the hospital. And you're alive because I called rescue. The words landed. He lowered his voice. I know. Do you? I was terrified. So was I. He looked around. The empty hallway. Can we please go inside? No. He had never liked public conversations. Public conversations gave him less control. Nora, Chloe and I made a mistake. How long? What? How long have you been sleeping with her? We haven't been sleeping together. I simply looked at him. He rubbed his face. The kiss was the first time. I laughed. I couldn't help it. His expression sharpened. You think this is funny? No, I think you're bad at lying. You have no idea what you're talking about. In my first life that sentence would have worked. It would have made me pause. Now I remembered Chloe's earrings on Ethan's bathroom counter 6 months before my death. I remembered the restaurant receipt for 2 people on the night he claimed he was with clients. I remembered Chloe telling me not to be insecure when Ethan stopped answering my calls after 10. The memories rearranged themselves, not new information, new meaning. How long? He exhaled. Nora, I care about you. That's not a number. He stared at me, then something in his expression turned cold. You're really going to throw away 4 years over one stupid night? There he was, the man beneath the charm. I didn't throw it away. You've been distant for months. Interesting, now we had reached retroactive justification. You work constantly, you don't want to go out, you don't support what I'm trying to build at ArcLight. What are you trying to build? My career. You mean the career where you tell executives you design products you've never opened a technical file for? His face changed only slightly, but I saw it. That was new. In my previous life I had never questioned his work. Ethan recovered quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say you did. He stared at me. For the second time in 12 hours he had reacted before I accused him. I filed that away. You need to move out of my condo, I said. Our condo. The deed is in my name. I pay half the mortgage. No, you transfer me $800 a month. The mortgage is $2,600. He went silent. I had bought the Denver condo before we moved in together. I had never added him to title at the time. He said it didn't matter because we were building a life. Thank God for one decision I had made before becoming stupid with love. You can't just kick me out. You aren't a tenant on a fixed lease. I'll follow Colorado notice requirements. That stopped him. Legal reality is less dramatic than revenge stories. You cannot simply throw someone's belongings onto the street because they cheated. I knew that, so I had emailed a housing attorney at 6 that morning. I'm giving you proper written notice, I said. Until then, use the guest room. You already talked to a lawyer? Yes. His face went blank. You plan this fast? I almost told him I had been planning it since I died. Instead I said, you gave me a lot of clarity. He leaned closer. This isn't you. That sentence nearly made me angry. Then I realized something. He was right. This wasn't the version of me he knew. That woman was dead. No, I said quietly. It isn't. I stepped around him. He caught my wrist. I looked down. He released me immediately. Don't touch me again. For once he listened. I packed my laptop and left Kestrel Ridge before lunch. Caleb was beside a county truck near the parking lot. He was talking to another engineer over rolled survey plans. I considered walking past. Then he looked up. Nora. I stopped. He ended the conversation and came over. How are you? Single. His mouth twitched. I meant physically. Also alive. That is generally positive. For a few seconds it felt almost normal. Then I remembered his words from the night before. He used to. What did you mean? The humor disappeared. Caleb glanced at the people nearby. This isn't the place. When is? You have my number. I folded my arms. You've had mine for 5 years. Something flashed across his face. Pain. I couldn't tell. No, he said. I didn't. Before I could ask, his radio sounded. He stepped back. I'll call you. Caleb, he looked at me. Did Ethan have something to do with why we stopped talking? He did not answer. That was answer enough. On the 3-hour drive back to Denver, my phone kept lighting up. Ethan, Chloe, 2 coworkers, then Mateo Ruiz. Mateo was lead engineer on Warden Arclight's emergency location system. His message was simple: call me before Monday. Something weird happened with the design archive. I pulled into a gas station and called him. Nora, what happened? You know the Warden regulatory package you locked last Friday? Yes. Someone exported the engineering summary after you left for the retreat. I sat straighter. Who? Don't know yet. IT's checking. Was it modified? Presentation layer only? What does that mean? Your name disappeared. I said nothing. Mateo continued. So did mine. Who replaced us? A pause. Ethan. The world went very still. What exactly does the document say? It lists him as strategic product originator. I closed my eyes. Ethan's reaction that morning returned to me. My career, what I'm trying to build at Arclight. How much was exported? We don't know. Any external transmission? IT hasn't confirmed. Do not email me the files, I said. Preserve the original access logs. Don't alter anything. Mateo whistled softly. Compliance. Nora has entered the building. She never left. You okay? No. Fair. I called Diane Kim next. Diane was outside. Board counsel. I had known her since my grandmother died because she administered legal matters for the Merritt Family Trust's Arclight holdings. Few employees knew I had any financial relationship with the company beyond my salary. Ethan certainly didn't. That had always been intentional. My grandmother believed inherited leverage should not become inherited arrogance. Diane answered. Nora, I need advice in 2 capacities. That is rarely a good opening. One as an employee, one as a trust beneficiary. Go on. I told her about the document alteration. I did not accuse Ethan of trade secret theft. Not yet. I told her only what Mateo had reported. Diane listened without interruption. When I finished, she said the sentence I remembered from every serious conversation with her. Bring me something I can defend in a room full of hostile lawyers. I intend to. Do not access Ethan's private accounts. I won't. Do not secretly record conversations unless counsel confirms the jurisdictional issues. I won't. Do not confront him about company data. I already confronted him about cheating. That is your personal problem. Thank you for the sympathy. I bill sympathy separately. Despite myself, I laughed. Then Diane's voice softened. Are you safe? Yes. Good. Preserve your personal evidence. Let IT preserve company evidence. Keep those categories separate. I understand. I hung up. For the first time since waking, I felt something besides fear and betrayal. Direction. In my previous life, I had chased Ethan into darkness because I wanted answers immediately. This time I would let the answers come through records, timestamps, access logs, contracts, witnesses. People can rewrite conversations. Systems are harder to persuade. My phone buzzed again. A message from Caleb. I found something about the Black Hollow Gate. Call when you're somewhere private. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared, and yes, Ethan had something to do with why we stopped talking. I sat alone in my car beneath the bright gas station lights. The man I thought had betrayed me for one night had apparently been shaping my life for years. And I had only just begun to see how much. By Monday morning, Ethan had transformed himself from cheating boyfriend into injured victim. He arrived at Arclight wearing a walking boot. Chloe wore a soft brace around her left knee. I wore black trousers, a white blouse, and the expression of a woman who had slept 6 hours in 3 days and no longer had energy for nonsense. People stared. Of course they did. Corporate offices are villages with security badges. By 9 o'clock, half the building knew there had been an accident. By 9:30, everyone knew Ethan and Chloe had been together when it happened. By 10, the story had divided into versions. In Ethan's version, Chloe became frightened during the camp and he escorted her back toward the lodge. They got lost. In Chloe's version, they had gone searching for me because they thought I had wandered outside while sick. That one was particularly creative. I learned about it when a junior marketing associate stopped beside my desk. I'm glad you're okay. I looked up. Why wouldn't I be? She hesitated. Chloe said they thought you were missing. I smiled. Did she? The associate realized she had stepped into something dangerous. I probably misunderstood. Probably. The moment she left, I documented the conversation, not because office gossip mattered legally, because changing stories reveal pressure points. At 10:17, Mateo appeared beside my desk. Holding 2 coffees, he placed one in front of me. Peace offering. For what? Existing in this building. Accepted. He sat. Matteo looked like an engineer designed by an engineer, functional, slightly rumpled, permanently carrying 3 pens and one expression of restrained irritation. IT preserved the archive. Good. Someone logged in Saturday at 6:12 p.m. My stomach tightened. During the retreat. Yep. Whose credentials? Ethan's. I stared at him. Remote access. VPN from Kestrel. Ridge Wi-Fi. That meant Ethan had altered the document before the night camp, before Chloe and I supposedly ruined everything by being emotional women. External transfer. Matteo lowered his voice. There's a download event, we don't know where it went after that. Who knows? Me IT security, Diane HR director. Keep it that way. He nodded, then he slid a printed page toward me. I didn't touch it. What is that? Metadata summary. Diane approved me showing you because you're compliance owner. On Warden. I read, the file was called Warden_commercial_strategy_final_V7, created by Nora Whitmore, technical contributors Mateo Ruiz, Aisha Grant, Jonah Bell, modified Saturday, 6:12 p.m. The modification replaced the contributor section with product vision initiated by Ethan Cole, Director of Business Development. I felt something almost like embarrassment, not because he had stolen from me, because the theft was so stupidly obvious. He thought nobody would check version history. Matteo shrugged. Salespeople believe software exists only when they open PowerPoint. I laughed despite myself. Then the elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped out. He saw us, Matteo murmured. And now I disappear. Coward. Engineer. He walked away. Ethan approached my desk. Can we talk? No. This is work. Then send a meeting request. His eyes flicked toward nearby employees. Nora. I kept looking at my screen. A calendar invitation arrived 10 seconds later. 1:00 p.m. Warden positioning discussion attendees. Ethan Cole, Nora Whitmore, VP Product, VP Sales. Interesting, he was moving fast. At lunch, Caleb called. I went outside. You asked about the gate. I said, we photographed the chain. And it wasn't weathered through bolt cutters. I closed my eyes. Any cameras? One lodge service camera catches part of the road. Sheriff's office requested footage. Can they tell who? Maybe. I leaned against the building. Ethan reacted when I mentioned the chain. Don't question him. Everyone keeps saying that. Because people ruin good evidence by chasing confessions. I know. A pause. How are you? Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because your boyfriend cheated with your best friend and nearly fell into an 80-foot mine shaft. When you say it like that, my week sounds bad. Caleb laughed. The sound surprised me. I remembered it. I also remembered how much I used to like causing it. He became quiet again. I found my old emails. My grip tightened on the phone. From 5 years ago? Yes. What happened? I'd rather tell you in person. Why? Because I don't want you reading my tone wrong. That was such a Caleb answer, careful, precise, nothing like Ethan's endless emotional fog. Dinner tomorrow? I asked before I could overthink it. Silence. Then, are you asking me on a date? No? Good. Why good? Because you ended a 4-year relationship 72 hours ago. I rolled my eyes. I remember why you annoyed me. Tomorrow 7 there's a diner on Colfax you used to like. It closed. Of course it did. There's another place nearby. Send it. He hung up at 1 o'clock. I entered the warden meeting. Ethan was already presenting. A slide behind him read, Commercial Origin Story, Market-Led Innovation. He smiled at the VP of Product. When I first proposed Warden, the concept was simple. Outdoor safety technology had become too fragmented. My fingernails pressed into my notebook. Warden began as a compliance problem I had identified 2 years earlier. Cheap emergency locators were failing in cold conditions because their battery claims were based on unrealistic laboratory temperatures. I had brought the issue to Matteo. His team built the hardware. I coordinated testing requirements. Ethan joined 6 months later when the prototype entered commercial planning. He had not proposed anything. I said nothing. Let him talk. The VP of Product looked at me. Nora, anything to add? Ethan answered first. She handled regulatory. Handled. I almost admired the efficiency. 2 years reduced to 1 verb. I smiled. That's right, I handled the regulatory framework. Ethan relaxed. Then I added. Which is why the controlled development record should be used for authorship rather than this presentation. Silence. The VP frowned. What do you mean? Ethan turned. I kept my voice neutral. The engineering design history identifies the contributors by phase. Commercial presentation slides aren't controlled authorship records. That isn't what I'm saying. Ethan replied quickly. Good. Then we're aligned. The VP looked between us. Why is this an issue? It doesn't need to be, I said. Ethan's mouth tightened. He knew I knew. He didn't know how much that uncertainty was useful after the meeting. He followed me into the hallway. What are you doing? Going back to work. Are you trying to humiliate me? No? Then why bring that up? Because you described yourself as the originator of a product you didn't originate. His face darkened. You're doing this because of Chloe. No. Don't lie. I turned. This is the problem, Ethan. You think my personal humiliation means I can't recognize professional misconduct independently. Misconduct. You chose the word. He stepped closer. You need to be careful. There it was, not quite a threat, enough to document. About what? About turning a breakup into a career war. I haven't. Not yet. I looked at him. For years, I had mistaken his confidence for competence. They weren't the same thing. Then you have nothing to worry about. I walked away. That afternoon, Diane called me into a conference room. An HR investigator sat beside her. A laptop rested on the table. Diane did not waste time. We've confirmed unauthorized export of confidential Warden materials from Ethan's account. My heartbeat accelerated. To whom? Unknown. For now, the investigator added. Diane folded her hands. We're opening a formal review. Do I need to recuse because of the relationship? Yes, from investigative decision-making. That made sense. You may provide evidence as a witness, she continued. You will not conduct the investigation. Understood. Diane watched me. Can you do that? The old Nora would have felt insulted. This Nora understood exactly why she was asking. Yes. Good. She slid a preservation notice toward me. Also, do not delete personal communications involving Ethan or Chloe. I've backed them up. Of course you have. I stood. Nora. I stopped. Diane rarely used a gentle tone. Do not confuse patience with passivity. I don't. Good, because people like Ethan often rely on the injured person becoming impatient enough to make a procedural mistake. I looked through the conference room glass. Ethan was laughing with two executives near the elevators, still charming, still confident, still unaware that company counsel had already frozen his access logs. I won't make one, I said. That evening, Chloe finally called instead of texting. I answered. Nora, what do you need? She started crying, not delicate tears, full sobs. I can't lose you. I closed my eyes. You already did. It wasn't supposed to happen. How long? Silence, then barely audible. 14 months. The number entered my chest like a blade. 14 months, not one kiss, not one mistake. 14 months. I remembered birthdays, trips, her sleeping in my guest room, her asking whether Ethan and I planned to get married, all while she was sleeping with him. I am so sorry, she whispered. I stared at the wall. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. He told me you didn't really love him anymore. I laughed once. Of course he did. He said you were only with him because it was convenient. Chloe. What? Did you ever ask me? Silence. You were my best friend. I know. No, you knew things about me. That's different. She started crying harder. I felt nothing. Then she whispered, there's something else. My skin prickled. What? I think Ethan is in trouble at work. I did not respond. He's been talking to someone from Evernorth. Evernorth, ArcLight's largest competitor. My hand tightened around the phone. What kind of talking? I don't know. She was lying. I could hear it. Chloe. He said it was business. What business? Another silence. Then, he said after the retreat, everything at ArcLight was going to change. I met Caleb the next evening at a small restaurant in Denver where nobody from ArcLight was likely to see us. That mattered more than it should have. Not because there was anything romantic happening, because I had spent 4 years living inside Ethan's interpretation of every interaction. A male colleague complimented my presentation. He was flirting. I stayed late with Mateo. Ethan joked that engineers were my real boyfriends. Caleb's name appeared once in an old social media memory. Ethan became silent for the rest of the evening. I had called it jealousy because jealousy sounded like love. Now I knew better. Control often wears emotions people recognize. Caleb was already seated when I arrived. He stood. You look tired. That's apparently my new defining feature. I was going to say alive. Also popular. We ordered. For the first 10 minutes we talked about safe things, his work, the county, my job. Then Caleb placed his phone on the table. I found the email thread. My stomach tightened. Okay. 5 years ago, after you started dating Ethan, I emailed you. I never saw it. I know that now. He unlocked the phone and turned it toward me. The email was dated May 14. I Remembered that week, Ethan and I had been dating for just over a month. Caleb had recently accepted an engineering job in Utah. The message was simple: I don't know whether I'm too late, but leaving without saying this feels dishonest. I wanted more than friendship. I think I have for a long time. If you're happy, I won't interfere. I just don't want silence to be the reason nothing was said. My throat tightened. Below it was a reply from my email account: please don't contact me like this again. I'm with Ethan now. I think our friendship became inappropriate and I should have ended it sooner. I wish you well. I stared. I didn't write that. I know. How? Because 3 weeks later I got a text from you asking why I disappeared. Memory came back. I had sent Caleb a casual message alive. He never answered, or so I thought. Caleb scrolled a screenshot. My message had been followed by another reply from my number. Ethan and I are serious. Don't make this weird. My hands went cold. I didn't send that either. I figured that out about a year later. A year. I ran into your college roommate. She mentioned you were upset I'd cut you off. I stared at him. Why didn't you call me? I did. When? Twice. I never got calls. Caleb leaned back. I assumed you had blocked me. My mind raced at that time. Ethan had helped me transfer data when I replaced my phone. He knew my passwords. I had thought nothing of it. Did you ever speak to Ethan? Yes. My eyes snapped to his. When? After the second call? What did he say? That you were uncomfortable with me contacting you and didn't want confrontation. Anger came slowly, not explosive, heavier. He lied to both of us? Yes. Why are you only telling me now? Caleb's jaw tightened. Because when I realized something was wrong, you were already living with him. That didn't answer me. No. He looked down at his hands. I was angry. With me? With myself, with him, with the situation. He exhaled. And I didn't know how much I was projecting because I still had feelings for you. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. I decided the least selfish thing was to stay out of your relationship. I looked at the old messages again. 5 years. Ethan had not simply benefited from Caleb disappearing. He had helped make it happen. Did you save everything? Yes. Send it to me. Caleb looked surprised. Why? Because I am done relying on memory. Something in his face softened. He forwarded the screenshots and original email headers. Then he said, Nora, this is personal evidence. Don't mix it into the company investigation unless counsel says it's relevant. I almost smiled. You sound like Diane. Should I be afraid? Yes. Our food arrived. For a few minutes neither of us spoke. Then Caleb asked, why did you call me that night? The question I had been avoiding, because I knew you'd answer. You didn't know that. Yes, I did. He watched me carefully. I took a breath. Something happened to me. What? I can't explain it in a way that sounds rational. Try. I looked through the restaurant window. Cars moved along wet pavement beneath streetlights. I knew where the mine would fail. Caleb said nothing. I knew Ethan and Chloe would go there. Still nothing. I knew I would die if I followed them. His face changed, not disbelief, concern. Nora, I told you it sounds crazy. Did you have a dream? Maybe. You said you had a picture. It was more than a picture. I could not tell him everything, not yet, but I needed one person in this life who knew I had not simply guessed. I knew what Chloe would be wearing. Caleb remained quiet. I knew where they'd kiss. I knew the sound the timber would make before it broke. His fingers tightened around his water glass, and I knew your name was on the inspection sign. He looked at me for a long time, then asked, do you believe you saw the future? I almost laughed. I believe I died. The words were out. Neither of us moved. I expected questions. Instead, Caleb said quietly, okay. My eyes filled. You don't believe me. I didn't say that. You said okay. Because I don't know what else to say to someone who looks terrified while telling me she remembers dying. I swallowed. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not going to tell you what your experience was. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not romance, trust, a much rarer thing. The next morning, ArcLight's internal investigation expanded. IT confirmed that Ethan's account had downloaded 3 confidential files: the Warden commercial strategy, a battery performance testing summary, a confidential supplier cost sheet. The downloads occurred on 3 separate dates. The oldest was 6 weeks earlier. The most recent happened at Kestrel Ridge. Diane called me into her office. We've identified Evernorth contact. My pulse jumped. How? Not through Ethan's personal account, through expense records. ArcLight employees were required to submit business meals with attendee information. Ethan had filed 2 dinners as prospective vendor meetings. One attendee was listed as E. North. Consulting, no such vendor existed. The credit card receipt showed the restaurant reservation was made for a man named Grant Phelps. Grant Phelps was Evernorth's vice president of commercial strategy. Diane pushed the document toward me. Recognize him? No? Good. Why good? Because it keeps you further away from the transaction. That mattered. An investigation led by a betrayed girlfriend could be attacked as retaliation. An investigation led by IT, finance, counsel, and independent auditors could not be dismissed so easily. What about Chloe? Diane's face became unreadable. She submitted one of the expense reports. My stomach sank. Of course, brand partnerships often helped organize executive meetings. She knew. We don't know what she knew. I thought about her phone call. He's been talking to someone from Evernorth, not suspicion, knowledge. Can I give you something? Diane nodded. I summarized Chloe's statement from our call. Did you record it? No? Good. I frowned. Why good? Because Colorado is generally a one-party consent state for recording, but company policy and multi-state complications make secret recordings unnecessarily messy. Your contemporaneous notes are enough to guide inquiry. I handed her my written note with date and time. She read it, then looked up. Anything else? 14-month affair. Diane blinked. I am not your therapist. I'm establishing motive and relationship. Better. I almost smiled. The investigation moved quietly. Ethan continued working, but his access to sensitive product archives was temporarily restricted under the explanation of a cybersecurity review. He hated it, I could tell. 2 days later, he cornered me in the parking garage. Did you report me? I stopped beside my car. About what? You know exactly what. No, explain. His nostrils flared. IT locked me out of Warden. Then ask IT. This is you. Why would I have authority to lock a business development director out of engineering archives? He stared. For years he had assumed I was less powerful than him because I spoke less loudly. That assumption was about to become expensive. You've poisoned everyone against me. No. Chloe told me you threatened her. I laughed. With what? She says you're collecting evidence. That was interesting. I collect documentation for a living. You're enjoying this? I stopped smiling. No. That answer was honest. I was not enjoying any of it. Revenge stories lie about that part. Watching people who betrayed you destroy themselves doesn't feel like champagne. It feels like standing outside a burning house you used to live in. Even when you know you should never go back, some part of you remembers where the furniture was. I wanted to marry you, I said. Ethan's anger faltered. I trusted Chloe with my mother's jewelry. He looked away. You two took 14 months of my life and rewrote it while I was living inside it. Nora? So no, I'm not enjoying this. I opened my car. But I am going to survive it. That night Mateo texted, we found another file. I called immediately. What? Prototype test schedule. My pulse increased. What about it? Ethan downloaded it 2 days before the retreat. Why does commercial need prototype test scheduling? He doesn't. Mateo's voice hardened. And Nora? Yes. The schedule identifies which Warden units were going to federal certification testing. My skin went cold. If Evernorth knew exactly which prototypes were being certified and when, it could create enormous competitive advantage. How bad? Bad enough Diane brought in outside forensic counsel. I closed my eyes. This was no longer office politics. It was potentially trade secret misappropriation. Then Mateo added, there's more. What? Someone tried to make it look like the download came from your workstation. For several seconds I heard nothing. Explain. The first log entry points to your machine ID. My heart hammered. But you weren't in the building. When? Saturday. I was at Kestrel Ridge. Mateo exhaled. And whoever did it forgot that your workstation requires badge proximity for secure archive access. I understood. My badge was with me. At the lodge. Yes. So the local machine record is fake. Exactly. I stared into my dark apartment. In my previous life I died Saturday night. If I had died again, the falsified record would have pointed toward me, a dead compliance manager, a convenient source of leaked files. For the first time, I wondered whether Ethan and Chloe's decision to leave me beneath Black Hollow had been more than cowardice. Maybe my death had solved more than one problem for them. The first time Ethan tried to steal my work publicly, I let him finish. That was the part he never expected. 2 weeks after Kestrel Ridge, ArcLight held its quarterly product meeting. Normally it was boring: engineering updates, sales forecasts, certification schedules. That morning, however, Ethan arrived wearing a navy suit and the expression he used when he wanted executives to remember his name. His walking boot was gone. Apparently betrayal healed. Ankles quickly, I sat beside Mateo across the table. Chloe avoided looking at me. She was still employed while HR investigated her role in the Evernorth contacts. Diane had advised management against premature action. That frustrated some people. It reassured me. Real consequences take longer than dramatic ones. They are also harder to overturn. Ethan stood. Warden is at an inflection point. Mateo leaned toward me. He learned that phrase yesterday. I kicked his chair lightly. Ethan continued. He described the product as though he had personally assembled every circuit board. Then the slide changed. Origin and strategic development. My name appeared in small text under regulatory support. His appeared at the top. Concept lead Ethan Cole. Mateo went completely still. The VP of product frowned. I did nothing. Ethan talked for another 6 minutes. When he finished, the CEO asked questions. Mateo raised his hand. I touched his sleeve. He looked at me. I shook my head. Then I raised mine. Could we pull up controlled development record WDN001? Ethan's expression changed. The CEO looked toward the technical coordinator. Can we? Mateo said, I have it. Of course he did. A minute later, the official development history appeared on screen. Problem identification, Nora Whitmore. Technical feasibility, Mateo Ruiz / engineering team. Regulatory architecture, Nora Whitmore / quality. Commercial strategy, business development team. No concept lead, no Ethan, just the boring truth. I looked at him. This is the record used for audit and certification purposes? Nobody spoke. I continued. Marketing presentations are not authoritative development records. The CEO's face hardened. Why don't they match? Ethan smiled too quickly. It's a matter of simplifying the story. Mateo finally spoke. By changing who did the work. The room went quiet. Ethan looked at him. That's not what happened. I closed my notebook. Then correcting the slide should be easy. The CEO turned to the coordinator. Correct it? That was it? No screaming, no public firing, no applause, just one lie. Losing oxygen in a conference room. It felt better than I expected. After the meeting, Ethan followed me into the hall. You set me up. You created the slide. You knew what I was going to say. Yes. How? Because you've been saying variations of it for months. He stepped closer. Are you trying to destroy me? No. Stop saying that. Then stop asking questions with disappointing answers. His face twisted for 1 second. I saw real fear. You think you're untouchable because Diane likes you. I nearly laughed. Diane did not like anyone before coffee. This has nothing to do with Diane liking me. You always do this. Do what? Act quiet so people underestimate you. I stared at him. That might have been the most honest thing he had ever said. You underestimated me voluntarily. I walked away that afternoon. Outside, forensic counsel confirmed the falsified workstation record. Someone had edited a local export log. After copying the files, the person had used Ethan's administrative project credentials, not enough to prove he personally made the alteration, enough to narrow the field. Then IT found something else, a shared cloud folder. Not the contents, the access token. The folder belonged to an Evernorth consultant. ArcLight's attorneys issued a litigation hold and preservation notice. No one stormed Evernorth's offices. No police appeared. Trade secret cases begin with lawyers, servers, and tedious records. That lack of drama frightened Ethan more than a confrontation would have. He requested personal leave. HR denied the request pending interview. Chloe stopped coming to lunch. People who once surrounded her desk suddenly found other places to sit. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired. That evening, Caleb found me sitting outside ArcLight with my shoes off. He had texted asking whether I wanted dinner. I had said no. He arrived with food anyway. You're annoying, correct? He handed me a paper bag. Tacos? That doesn't make you less annoying. It usually does. I took the bag. He sat beside me on the low concrete wall for several minutes. We ate without talking. That was one thing I had forgotten about Caleb. Silence around him never felt like punishment. Ethan used silence as a weapon. Caleb used it as space. You won something today, he said eventually. I looked at him. How do you know? You have the expression you used when you beat Professor Lang's impossible statistics exam. I got 81%. Highest grade in the class. That exam was criminal. You celebrated with gas station donuts. I had standards. He smiled. I looked down at my taco. He tried to take credit for Warden in front of the executive team. And I made them pull the actual development record. Caleb nodded slowly. That sounds like you. Does it? Yes. I thought about that. Ethan says this isn't me. Ethan benefited from one version of you. The words landed quietly. I stared at the parking lot. I loved him. I know. I keep thinking that should be embarrassing. It isn't. I miss things. So I'm supposed to be smart. Caleb set down his drink. Smart people get betrayed, I should have known. Based on what? Receipts, missed calls, Chloe being weird, Ethan getting defensive. After you know the answer, every clue looks obvious. I hated how reasonable that was. I followed them in my first life. Caleb became still, the words had come out without planning. I looked at him. In what you remember? Yes, he did not correct me, I continued. I saw them kiss, I ran after them, I wanted Ethan to explain, my voice tightened. I went past the closure. Caleb's face lost color. I fell. Nora. I couldn't get out. He looked away for a second. When? Same place, same night. How long were you alive? I don't know. My hands began shaking. Long enough to hear them decide not to call for help. Caleb's jaw clenched. They left? Yes. He stood abruptly. For 1 second I thought he was leaving. Instead he walked several steps away and put both hands on his hips. He was angry, not at me, that made it worse. I remember Ethan saying rescue would ask why they were there. Caleb turned. And Chloe said I would tell everyone about them. His face hardened. They chose their affair over your life. In that life, he stared at me. That distinction isn't helping. I know. He came back. This time he sat closer, not touching me, just closer. I don't know what happened to you, he said quietly. Neither do I. But I know something. What? You don't owe this life to the people who wasted the last one. My throat closed. I looked away. For years, Ethan had made me feel that leaving him would mean admitting the relationship had been a mistake. Caleb's sentence changed the equation. Leaving did not erase what I gave. It simply stopped the loss from continuing. My phone rang. Diane, I answered. Nora, where are you? Outside the office. Come back upstairs. Why? We received Evernorth's initial preservation response. My pulse jumped, and Diane paused. One of the transferred documents was attached to an email. From whom? We don't have the sender identity confirmed, but the message says, once Nora is out of the way, there won't be anyone left who can challenge the origin story. I went cold. Caleb watched my face. Diane continued, we need you upstairs now. I stood. Caleb stood too. What happened? I looked at him. For 2 weeks I had told myself Ethan's business. Misconduct was separate from Black Hollow. Now I wasn't sure. They were talking about getting me out of the way. Caleb's expression changed. Who? I don't know yet. That answer lasted less than an hour. By midnight, Diane did. The sender was Chloe. Chloe's defense was that out of the way meant transferred to another department. Her attorney said so 3 times during the internal interview. Nobody laughed. That was probably wise. Arclight placed her on paid administrative leave. Ethan received the same notice. Neither had been fired, yet the company needed to complete the investigation, determine the extent of the Evernorth disclosure, and avoid making decisions that could later be attacked as retaliatory or inconsistent. I understood the logic. Emotionally, I wanted their access badges turned into decorative coasters. Instead I went to work. 2 days later, Chloe retaliated. At 7:08 in the morning, Mateo called me. Do not open social media. Naturally, I opened social media. A video had been posted overnight. 23 seconds, shot at Kestrel Ridge. The clip showed Chloe standing beside the campfire earlier that evening. She was laughing. Then the video cut to me near the lodge window. A caption appeared. When your best friend knows you're missing in the mountains but waits to call for help. The next shot showed an ambulance. Then me walking away while Chloe sat wrapped in a rescue blanket. The implication was clear. Cold Nora. Jealous Nora. Nora who watched her cheating best friend get hurt and did nothing. By 8 o'clock, the video had been reposted hundreds of times. By 9, anonymous comments were tagging Arclight. By 10, someone had found my LinkedIn page. The internet did what it always does. It built certainty faster than facts. I sat at my desk reading comments until Diane physically closed my laptop. Stop. I need to know what they're saying. No, communications needs to know. They're accusing me of. I know. Diane sat opposite me. Do not respond personally. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it? Yes. That's why I'm here. She handed me a printout. Kestrel Ridge preserved original security footage. I looked up the shed. The relevant cameras. My pulse quickened. Does it show them leaving? Yes. Does it show when I called? Your phone records do. Diane's mouth tightened. And County Dispatch has your call to Caleb timestamped before the collapse. Relief loosened something in my chest. Then release it. No. I stared. Why not? Because rescue records include medical information and active investigative material. Of course, reality again, you cannot dump everything online because strangers are angry. What can we release? Nothing personally until counsel coordinates. I leaned back. This is insane. Yes. She gets to lie publicly while I have to wait. For the moment. That feels like losing. Diane's expression sharpened. Do not mistake silence for losing. I had heard that before. Patience versus passivity. Fine. I waited. At noon, Arclight released a short statement. It did not mention the affair. It did not defend me emotionally. It said only that online material regarding a recent private employee incident did not reflect verified emergency response records, and that the company would not comment further while reviews were ongoing. People hated it, which meant it was probably legally appropriate. Caleb called that afternoon. I saw the video. Congratulations, Mateo told me not to. Did you listen? No. Consistent. I closed my office door. County records. Sheriff's office is reviewing what can be released. Can you say anything? Publicly, no. Personally, you called me at 9:03. I closed my eyes. The initial ground failure was recorded by a monitoring sensor at 9:17. 14 minutes. I had not waited. I had acted before they were hurt. Caleb continued. First rescue unit entered the trail at 9:24. And Chloe. Contact at 9:58. I wrote every time down. Thank you, Nora. Yes. Do not go online and argue. Why is everyone saying that? Because you're stubborn. I am surrounded by dictators. He laughed softly, then his voice became serious. The cut chain footage is clearer than we thought. I stopped writing. Who? I can't tell you until sheriff's office releases it. Caleb? No. You already know. Yes. Was it Ethan? Silence. That was enough. My chest tightened. Why would he cut the chain? We don't know. In my previous life, Ethan and Chloe had reached the deeper mine area easily. I had assumed the gate was already open. Now I realized Ethan may have prepared the path, not for murder, for privacy, a secret place, a romantic adventure, a stupid decision that became deadly. Yet he had also downloaded confidential material and participated in a plan to get me out of the way. The two lines were moving closer. That evening, a second leak appeared. This one was worse, a screenshot from an old text conversation between Chloe and me 6 months earlier. I had complained about Ethan working late. Sometimes I wish I could disappear for a week and make everybody solve their own problems. Chloe posted it with the caption. She had been talking about disappearing long before the camping trip. For 1 second I admired the cruelty. She was using my trust as source material. Every vulnerable thing I had given her could now become evidence against me. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. You destroy people and then play innocent. Another, your friend almost died. Another, maybe your boyfriend cheated because you're cold. I blocked them. Then I cried in the bathroom, not because strangers believed Chloe, because Chloe knew exactly which pieces of me to weaponize. My mother's death, my fear of abandonment, my habit of withdrawing when overwhelmed. She had sat beside me through all of it. Now she was turning intimacy into ammunition. At 7, someone knocked on my apartment door. I checked the peephole. Caleb, I opened it. What are you doing here? Mateo called me. That traitor. He said you looked like you might commit homicide or adopt 12 cats. Those are very different outcomes. He sounded concerned about both. Caleb held up a grocery bag. I brought dinner. You can't keep feeding me through emotional disasters. Why not? Because I'll associate tacos with betrayal. These are dumplings. I stepped aside. He came in. We ate at my kitchen counter. I told him about the messages. He did not tell me to ignore them. He did not say the internet was stupid. He simply asked, what hurts? I looked at him. What? Which part? I thought. That she knows what to use. He nodded. That makes sense. She knows every weak point. She knew an older version of every weak point. I frowned. What does that mean? You changed. I've changed in 2 weeks. You died. I stared at him. He held my gaze. According to you. A laugh escaped me. It turned into tears. Caleb moved closer, then stopped. Can I? He gestured toward me. I nodded. He hugged me. Nothing romantic happened that mattered. His hand rested between my shoulder blades. My face pressed against his shirt. I cried like someone who had been refusing to for years. He didn't tell me I was strong. He didn't say everything happened for a reason. He simply stayed. The next morning, the sheriff's office released a limited incident summary. No medical records, no speculation, just timeline. 9:03 p.m. Nora Whitmore reports 2 individuals entering restricted Black Hollow area. 9:17 p.m. Monitoring equipment records ground movement. 9:24 p.m. Rescue team enters. 9:58 p.m. First subject located 10:11 p.m. Second subject located the same afternoon. Kestrel Ridge released a still image showing two figures at the service gate. One held bolt cutters, the face was partly visible. Ethan, the online story changed within hours, not completely, the internet never apologizes in one direction, but enough. People began asking different questions. Why had Ethan cut a closure chain? Why had Chloe said they were searching for Nora when Nora had been inside the lodge? Why had they entered a restricted mine zone together? Then Mateo messaged me, come to conference room B. Now I went. Diane was there, so was Arclights outside forensic attorney. A laptop displayed an email recovered through Evernorth's Preservation Production. Sender Ethan Cole, recipient Grant Phelps. Date 3 days before Kestrel Ridge. The message was short. Nora still controls the compliance record. She won't sign off on the new attribution language. I'm dealing with it this weekend. After that, the deck will be clean. I read it twice. Dealing with it how? Diane said, we don't know. The attorney added, do not assume physical harm. I nodded. He was right. Evidence must mean what it means, nothing more. Then Diane changed the screen. Another message from Chloe to Ethan. Get her away from the group if she starts asking questions. She's been suspicious lately. My mouth went dry. Ethan replied, relax. She trusts both of us. I stared at those words. She trusts both of us. That had been their advantage, not intelligence, not strategy. My trust. I looked at Diane. What happens now? She closed the laptop. Now we stop treating this as an ordinary HR investigation. The most painful discovery wasn't that Ethan cheated. It wasn't even that Chloe helped him leak company material. It was how ordinary their conspiracy looked when laid out in documents. No dramatic master plan, no secret criminal empire, just selfish decisions layered over time. A hotel receipt, a deleted calendar entry, a confidential file copied after hours, a lie told to one manager, another lie told to me, a closure chain cut because Ethan wanted privacy, a message saying I was in the way. People imagine betrayal as one enormous choice. Usually it is 100 small permissions. 3 weeks after Kestrel Ridge, outside counsel interviewed me for nearly 4 hours. They asked about Warden, my relationship with Ethan, my friendship with Chloe, whether I had ever authorized Ethan to use my workstation, whether I had ever shared credentials, whether I had threatened either of them, whether I had known about Evernorth. I answered carefully. When I didn't know, I said I didn't know. When I couldn't remember exactly, I said that. Diane sat silently through most of it. Afterward, she handed me coffee. You did well. I feel like I got audited by the IRS. Less charming. I looked at her. Are they going to be fired? Probably. Probably. Evidence must be reviewed. Diane, she sighed. Nora, you don't want a fast termination. I very much do. No, you want a defensible termination. I hated. When she was right again that evening, Caleb and I walked through Washington Park. No restaurants, no rescue jackets, no crisis meeting, just walking. It felt strangely intimate. I've been thinking about something, I said, that usually creates problems. 5 years ago. He glanced at me. The emails. Yes. What about them? Ethan couldn't have intercepted everything forever. No. So why didn't we reconnect? Caleb was quiet. Because after enough time, pride becomes its own barrier. That sounds philosophical. It's an engineering principle. I laughed. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. I was hurt. I was confused. I know that now. You could have tried harder. Yes. I looked at him. He did not defend himself. That disarmed me. You agree. I should have asked you directly. I should have asked you why you disappeared. Yes. We walked another few steps. So we were both idiots. Moderately. Speak for yourself. You dated Ethan. I stopped. Caleb froze. Then I started laughing. He looked horrified. That sounded terrible. It was terrible. I'm sorry. No, you're not. No. We continued. The air was cold enough to turn our breath white. After a while, Caleb said, I loved you. Past tense. My heart reacted anyway. When? Then. I looked ahead. Only then. He sighed. Nora. What? You are 3 weeks out of a 4-year relationship. I know. You're investigating a corporate betrayal tied to the same man. I know. You remember dying. I definitely know. He stopped walking. So I'm not going to stand in a park and tell you I have been waiting 5 years like some tragic character in a movie. My chest tightened. Have you? No. That surprised me. I dated people. Oh. I had a relationship for 2 years. I hated the sharp feeling that came with that information, which was unfair. Why did it end? She moved to Boston. I didn't. That's simple. Mostly. He studied my face. Are you jealous? No? Yes. Maybe slightly. His mouth twitched. Then he became serious. I care about you now. My pulse changed. But I'm not going to become the safe man you run to because the unsafe one hurt you. That sentence stung, probably because it was correct. I wasn't planning to. Good. I also hate you a little. Healthy. We started walking again, our shoulders brushed once, neither of us moved away. 2 days later, Chloe requested a private meeting with me through attorneys. I almost refused. Diane advised against speaking without counsel present, so we met in a neutral conference room. Her lawyer sat beside her, Diane sat beside me. Chloe looked smaller than I remembered, no perfect makeup, no red hat, no smiling social media confidence. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I never wanted you hurt." I almost laughed. Diane touched one finger to her notebook, a reminder, stay factual. I understand that's your position. Chloe flinched at the formality. Nora? What? I know you hate me. I don't. That was true. Hate requires energy. I don't understand. I don't spend enough time thinking about you to hate you. Her eyes filled. A month earlier that would have destroyed me to say. Now it was simply true. She looked down. Ethan told me the Evernorth thing was normal competitive recruiting. Then why did you use a fake vendor name? Her attorney shifted. Chloe swallowed. He said Arclight would overreact. Why did you send the message about getting me out of the way? I meant the project. Why did you lie about searching for me at Black Hollow? Silence. Why did you post edited footage? Her tears fell. I panicked. There it was, the word people use when they want fear to erase intention. You edited video. I was getting attacked. You created the attack. I was scared. So was I. She looked up for the first time. Something like real shame appeared. I continued. You know what I remember most clearly from that night? Her expression tightened. You asking me not to tell people. I was in shock. Maybe. I leaned back. But even after I helped save your life, your first concern was your reputation. She covered her mouth. I suddenly remembered her voice in the dark from my first life. She saw us. She'll tell everyone. For a second both timelines overlapped. I had to grip the edge of the table. Diane noticed. Do you need a break? No? Chloe stared at me. What's wrong? I looked at her. In another life you let me die. I did not say it. There was no evidence for that world, no legal remedy, no use. Instead I asked, did Ethan ever talk about my ownership interest? Her confusion was immediate. What ownership? I looked at Diane. Diane's eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting. Chloe truly didn't know. That answered one question. Their business scheme had not been about acquiring my shares. It had been simpler: career theft, trade secrets, control. Diane closed her notebook. We're done. Outside the building I asked, you saw her face? Yes. She didn't know. No? Ethan doesn't either. Probably not. My grandmother's trust owned 18% of Arclight voting shares, not enough to run the company, enough to matter in major votes. I had always kept that information private from most employees, even Ethan. Especially Ethan after he started making jokes about marrying rich. Diane looked at me. Do not enjoy this. I wasn't going to. You're smiling. Only a little, she sighed. Your grandmother would approve. Unfortunately. The next week Arclight's board scheduled a special meeting. The investigation had reached a point where directors needed to consider executive action and potential litigation. Because of the Merritt family trust's voting rights, I would receive materials in my capacity as beneficiary representative. For the first time, Ethan would learn that the woman he had treated as an obstacle in compliance was one of the company's largest individual voting stakeholders. It would be satisfying, but something else mattered more. That night, Caleb came by. No emergency, no food, just him. We stood outside my apartment. I heard the county approved full Black Hollow closure, I said. Permanent stabilization project. So, nobody falls there again. That's the plan. I looked at him. I think I'm ready to tell you everything. About your first life. Yes. He nodded. No excitement, no disbelief, just readiness. I told him. All of it: the kiss, the chase, the fall, Ethan leaving, Chloe crying, the second collapse. The moment I realized nobody was coming. When I finished, Caleb was pale. He did not touch me immediately. That mattered. He let me choose. I stepped forward. He wrapped his arms around me. This time the hug was different, not because it was romantic, because I wasn't falling, I wasn't begging anyone to come back. I was standing on solid ground. And I knew the difference. Ethan learned about my Arclight shares at 9:12 on a Thursday morning. I know the exact time because he called me at 9:14. I declined the call at 9:16. He called again at 9:18. I received a message: we need to talk immediately. No, we really didn't. The board materials had gone out that morning. The cover memo identified the Merritt Family Trust as an 18% voting stakeholder and me as its beneficiary representative. There was nothing secret in a legal sense, it simply wasn't information shared with ordinary employees. Ethan had never asked, I had never volunteered it. At 9:27, he appeared outside my office. Security stopped him before he reached my desk. His system access had been suspended the previous evening pending board review. Nora, everyone looked up. I stood. I'm in a meeting. You own 18% of this company. Not personally. A family trust holds 18%. You never told me. No. We lived together. Yes. You were going to marry me. I considered it. His face reddened. How could you hide something like that? The irony was breathtaking. I almost admired it. You slept with my best friend for 14 months. That has nothing to do with this. Correct? I smiled. Neither does my trust. Security stepped closer. Ethan lowered his voice. Did you engineer this whole investigation? No. Don't lie to me. You really need a new sentence. You think you're better than everyone? No. You sat there for years pretending to be some compliance employee. I am a compliance employee. You have board influence. Limited voting influence. You could have helped me. There it was, not you should have trusted me, not I feel deceived, you could have helped me. What did you want me to do? He stared. Promote you. Silence. Protect you. His jaw tightened. Give you access. Nora. Is that what you think relationships are? Security asked him to leave. He looked at me one last time. You're going to regret doing this. I met his eyes. No. For once, I knew I wouldn't. The board meeting began at 11. I attended only the portion relevant to the trust's voting rights. Diane presented the investigative findings, no dramatic speeches, just facts. Ethan had downloaded confidential warden documents outside his job requirements. He met twice with Evernorth as Grant Phelps under false expense descriptions. He altered presentation authorship. His credentials were connected to an attempt to falsify a workstation export record. Chloe submitted one false expense report, facilitated at least one meeting, and sent internal strategy language to an external contact. Both had made materially inconsistent statements during the camping incident. Then came the most important evidence. Evernorth's forensic production showed a cloud upload from Ethan. The folder contained ArcLight's prototype certification schedule. The file hash matched the company original. There was no innocent explanation left. Evernorth immediately placed Grant Phelps on leave and offered to return or destroy ArcLight material under negotiated forensic supervision. That did not erase liability. It did show the competitor's board understood the seriousness. One ArcLight director asked, "Do we have evidence Nora participated?" Diane answered, "No." Another asked about the fake workstation record. Outside counsel spoke. The forged local machine reference points toward Ms. Whitmore but secure. Access logs show her badge was approximately 300 miles away at Kestrel Ridge. My stomach tightened. Hearing it stated so plainly made the intention feel real. Someone had tried to build a paper trail toward me. If I had died that night, I would never have defended myself. A dead employee's reputation could be shaped by whoever remained. The thought made my hands cold. Then Diane presented the Black Hollow timeline. Not because the affair mattered to corporate governance, because Ethan's message about dealing with Nora this weekend, and the false data trail made context relevant. No evidence proved he intended physical harm. Counsel said that clearly. The board was instructed not to speculate. I was grateful. I did not want revenge built on exaggeration. The truth was enough. After 3 hours, the board voted. Ethan was terminated for serious misconduct involving confidential information, falsification, conflict of interest, and dishonesty during investigation. Chloe was terminated for misconduct involving confidential information, false expense reporting, retaliation against a colleague through manipulated public media, and dishonesty during investigation. ArcLight authorized civil counsel to pursue claims related to trade secret misappropriation and associated damages. No police stormed the room, no one was dragged away. They simply lost access to the careers they had tried to build through deception. It felt quiet, almost anticlimactic. Then Ethan waited for me in the parking garage. Security was nearby. He had apparently requested permission to retrieve belongings. Nora. I stopped. He looked exhausted. For the first time since I met him, he looked ordinary, no executive charm, no perfect posture, just a man who had made choices. You won, he said. I hated the phrase. This wasn't a game. You got everything. What did I get? My job. You lost your job. My reputation. You damaged your reputation. My future. I stared at him. I didn't make you send ArcLight files. To Evernorth, he looked away. I thought Grant was recruiting me. Maybe he was. He said I could lead their new product division. So you gave him confidential information. I needed leverage. The honesty surprised me. And my work was leverage. You weren't using your position. What does that mean? You could have moved faster. I was following certification requirements. You always follow rules. Yes, he laughed bitterly. And look where that got you. I almost smiled. Still. Employed. His face hardened then softened again. I loved you. I believed he believed that. That was the saddest part. Maybe Ethan had loved me in the only way he knew, as someone useful, admiring, stable, available. Love that requires you to stay small is not love worth keeping. You loved having me, I said, his eyes filled. Is there really no chance? No. What about 4 years? They happened. You can just throw that away. I don't have to destroy the past to leave it. He stared. I continued. I loved you. That was real for me. His face crumpled slightly. But I'm not going to spend another 4 years proving it. I walked toward my car. Nora, I stopped. Did you know about the mine? The question froze me. I turned. What? That night, his voice shook. You called rescue before we fell? Yes. How? For 1 second I saw fear in his eyes, not fear of me. Fear of something he couldn't explain. I considered lying, then I said, I knew following you would kill me. His face went white. What does that mean? You don't need to understand, Nora. In another version of that night I followed. He stared. I could see him deciding whether I was unstable. That was fine. You left me there, I said quietly. His lips parted. I heard you. Nora, what are you talking about? Nothing you can fix. I got into my car. My hands were shaking. I drove 3 blocks before pulling over. Then I called Caleb. He answered, hey. I couldn't speak. His voice changed immediately. What happened? It's over. The board. Yes. I looked through the windshield. Rain began tapping against the glass. Ethan was fired. And Chloe. Also. Are you okay? I laughed shakily. No. Where are you? I told him. Stay there. 20 minutes later, his truck pulled in behind mine. He came to my passenger door. I unlocked it. He sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then I said, I thought this would feel better. What does it feel like? Empty. Caleb nodded. That's normal. You don't know that? No, he looked at me. But I know endings are quieter than people expect. I started crying again. Apparently rebirth had turned me into someone who cried in parked vehicles. Caleb reached across the console. He did not hug me. He simply took my hand. I let him. After several minutes I turned toward him. Caleb, yes. I don't want you because Ethan is gone. His expression changed. I know. I need you to know that. I do. I wanted you before I understood why we lost each other. He stared at me. That was 5 years ago. I know. And now, I looked at our joined hands. Now I want to find out who we are without anyone answering messages for us. His thumb moved once across my knuckles. That sounds reasonable. Very romantic. I can improve. Please don't. He smiled, and for the first time, I smiled back without feeling guilty. The civil case took months. That surprised almost everyone except Diane. Ethan's employment ended quickly once the board completed its review. But trade secret litigation did not transform into instant punishment. ArcLight's lawyers negotiated with Evernorth, forensic specialists examined devices. Grant Phelps hired his own attorney. Ethan disputed parts of the company's findings. Chloe initially threatened a wrongful termination claim, then withdrew after her attorney reviewed the preserved expense records and original video metadata. Nobody went to prison. There was no dramatic courtroom confession. Reality delivered consequences in invoices, depositions, damaged careers, and settlement language. Evernorth ultimately entered a confidential settlement with ArcLight that included financial compensation, destruction of improperly obtained materials, and independent verification that the Warden documents were not incorporated into its products. Grant Phelps resigned. Ethan was named individually in ArcLight's civil claim. His attorney eventually negotiated a settlement rather than take the case through trial. I was not told every financial detail. I didn't need to be. My role ended after testimony and document authentication. That boundary mattered. Revenge stopped being my job. Life became my job again. ArcLight asked me to lead a new product integrity group. I almost declined. For years, I had been the woman who checked everyone else's work after decisions were already made. The new role would put compliance inside product development from the beginning. I accepted on one condition. Mateo had to co-chair technical review. He responded to the offer by saying, "Absolutely not," then accepted 15 minutes later. My first presentation in the role included one sentence that made the CEO laugh. "Safety is not what happens after innovation. Safety is part of the design." Warden passed federal certification that spring. No one listed Ethan as concept lead. My name appeared where it always should have, not larger, not smaller, accurate. That was enough. Caleb and I moved slowly, painfully slowly, according to Mateo. "Have you kissed him yet?" he asked one afternoon. I nearly choked on coffee. "That is not a workplace question. You told me to improve cross-functional communication, not that function." He walked away laughing. The truth was that Caleb and I had not kissed. We had dinner, we walked, he came to my apartment, I visited his house outside Golden. We rebuilt familiarity without pretending the missing years had never happened. Sometimes he annoyed me, that reassured me. Fantasy survives on perfection. Relationships don't. One evening we argued about Black Hollow. The county planned a permanent closure project with federal abandoned mine funding. Caleb wanted to recommend a full concrete cap and exclusion zone. I had an idea for using part of the safe outer trail as a public education route about abandoned mine hazards. He hated it. People ignore signs. People ignore bad signs. They also ignore good signs. So teach them. You nearly died there. In another life. That does not make me more comfortable. I stared at him. This isn't about engineering. No. You're afraid. Yes. The directness stopped me. He ran a hand through his hair. "I know your idea is technically possible." "Then why?" "Because I have spent months imagining you in that shaft." My anger vanished. "Caleb, I wasn't there. That wasn't your fault. I know that intellectually." I stepped closer. He looked exhausted. "You saved them this time." "We saved them. You called me. You came." He looked at me. "That's different." Yes. I understood he was grieving something that had never happened to him, but had happened to me. A strange kind of second-hand trauma. I reached for his hand. "We don't have to turn Black Hollow into anything." He shook his head. "No, your idea is good. You just said, I can be afraid and still admit you're right. That sounds inconveniently mature." Terrible habit. We stood there holding hands, then I realized how close we were. His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth. My pulse accelerated. He looked back at my eyes. "Are you sure?" I smiled. "About what?" "Nora." "I wanted to hear you ask." He laughed once, then I kissed him. It was not cinematic, no rain, no music, no dramatic confession. I bumped my nose against his. He smiled into the kiss. I laughed. Then it became soft, warm, familiar in a way that made no logical sense. When we separated, his forehead rested against mine. 5 years late. I whispered, "Technically more. Don't ruin it with math, engineer." I kissed him again 2 weeks later. Chloe asked to meet me one final time. No lawyers this time, just coffee. I almost said no, then I realized I no longer feared what she might say, so I agreed. She looked different, less polished, more real. She had moved back to Fort Collins and taken contract marketing work. "I won't ask you to forgive me," she said. "Good." A small, sad smile. "I deserve that." I waited. She wrapped both hands around her cup. "I wanted your life." The honesty surprised me. "What part?" "All of it." I almost laughed. "My parents are dead." "I know." "My boyfriend cheated." "I know." "My best friend betrayed me." Her eyes filled. "I know." "Then which life?" "The version I saw." That answer stayed with me. She continued. "You always seemed like you knew where you belonged, your job, your condo. Ethan, people trusted you. So you slept with him?" "No." She looked down. "That was because I was selfish." At least she wasn't making excuses anymore. He made me feel chosen. I understood that more than I wanted to. And hurting me made that feeling stronger. Her face tightened. "Sometimes." There it was, the ugliest truth. I nodded. "Thank you for finally being honest." She looked up hopefully. I knew what she wanted: closure, forgiveness, maybe permission to stop hating herself. I couldn't give her that. "I hope you build a life you don't need to steal pieces from other people to tolerate." Tears slid down her face. "Nora? But you can't be in mine." She closed her eyes. "I understand." I believed her. That was enough. When I left the cafe, Caleb was waiting across the street, not because I had asked him to protect me, because we were going to dinner afterward. I crossed to him. "How bad?" he asked, sad. "Do you regret going?" "No." He took my hand. We walked halfway down the block. He said, "You know, Mateo asked me something inappropriate." I groaned. "What?" "Whether I'd kissed you." "I am firing him." "You don't have authority." "I'll develop authority." Caleb laughed. Then he squeezed my hand. The city around us was ordinary traffic, cold air, someone arguing with a parking meter, nothing dramatic. I realized I liked that. In my first life I had confused intensity with love. This felt different. Nothing was burning, nobody was chasing anyone into the dark. For the first time quiet felt safe instead of empty. By summer, Warden was being tested by 3 county search and rescue teams. That was Mateo's idea. He claimed it was mine, I claimed it was his. Diane told us both to stop behaving like children and sign the partnership agreement. Kestrel County became the first participant. Caleb refused to let our relationship affect procurement, so someone else handled technical evaluation. That annoyed me. It also made me trust him more. We learned how to disagree. That sounds small. It wasn't. With Ethan, disagreement became emotional. Whether if I questioned a plan, he became distant. If I asked where he had been, I was insecure. If I wanted something different, I was unsupportive. Over time I stopped asking. With Caleb, arguments ended. Not always pleasantly, but they ended. One Sunday we fought for 20 minutes about whether I should drive through a snowstorm to visit a certification lab. He thought it was unsafe. I thought he was overreacting. Finally he said, "You're allowed to make bad decisions. Thank you. And I'm allowed to think they're bad. Less helpful. You want control or agreement?" I stared at him. "What? Do you need me to agree with you, or do you need me not to control you?" The question stayed with me. Not control me. Done. I postponed the trip anyway. The interstate closed 2 hours later. Caleb never said I told you so. This was how love returned to me, not through grand declarations, through normal disagreement that did not become punishment. Ethan contacted me once after the civil settlement, a handwritten letter. Diane had no objection to me reading it because the legal matter was effectively resolved. I almost threw it away. Then I opened it. He apologized, not perfectly. Some sentences still sounded like self-pity. He said losing his career forced him to recognize how much he had built his identity on appearing successful. He admitted he resented me because people trusted my judgment without me demanding attention. He said Chloe made him feel admired. He said Evernorth made him feel important. He said I made him feel seen, which was apparently the one thing he had not known how to value. At the end, he wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness. I hope one day what I did becomes something that happened to you, not something that defines you." I read that line twice, then I folded the letter. Caleb was making coffee. "Want to know what he said?" "Only if you want to tell me." He apologized. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. "Nothing dramatic." "That seems healthy." "I think I believe part of it." Caleb handed me a mug. "Believing an apology doesn't require reconciliation." "I know." That was another lesson I had learned late. Forgiveness, when it comes, is not a contract granting renewed access. Sometimes it is simply the moment another person's choices stop requiring space in your mind. I put Ethan's letter in a drawer, not as a keepsake, not as evidence, just paper. Black hollow changed too. The unstable ventilation raise was filled and capped under an abandoned mine reclamation program. The most dangerous portion of the service road remained permanently closed. A safer outer section was redesigned as a short educational trail. At the entrance, the county installed a sign explaining that abandoned mines can remain dangerous for more than a century because of unstable ground, hidden shafts, contaminated air, and collapsing timber. No mention of Ethan, no mention of Chloe, no mention of me. Good. Not every place needs to become a monument to your pain. Sometimes fixing the hazard is enough. Ruth sent me a photograph when the sign went up. Her message said, "The mountain finally has a better warning label." I replied, "People still have to read it." She answered, "That's true of most things in life." In August, ArcLight's board asked whether I wanted a seat, not because of the trust alone, because the company had decided product safety and integrity needed direct representation. I asked Diane whether accepting would make me exactly the kind of person Ethan accused me of pretending not to be. She stared at me for a full 5 seconds. "That may be the dumbest question you've asked me." "Helpful. You were never pretending to have no influence. I kept the trust private. You kept your inheritance separate from your employment identity." "Same thing." "No." She leaned back. "Your grandmother gave you shares. You earned professional credibility. That distinction mattered. I accepted the board observer role first rather than full directorship. Diane called the choice annoyingly sensible. Mateo called it cowardly. Ruth sent champagne. Caleb cooked dinner. By then he kept a toothbrush at my apartment. I had a drawer at his house. Neither of us mentioned moving in, not yet. We were learning not to treat milestones like proof. One September evening, almost a year after Kestrel Ridge, Caleb asked whether I wanted to go back. I knew immediately what he meant. The lodge. Yes. My body reacted before my mind did. Cold hands, tight chest, a memory of dirt. He saw it. "We don't have to." I looked down. "I think I do." "Why?" "I don't know." "Then we wait until you do." That was Caleb. No pressure, no heroic speeches. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I called Ruth. She answered by saying, "Finally." You knew. Of course. We're coming next weekend. I'll give you the room with the mountain view. My throat tightened. The same room. Only if you want it. I considered, yes. When I told Caleb, he watched me carefully. You sure? No? Good answer. We drove to Kestrel Ridge on a clear Friday afternoon. The aspens were turning gold again, same color, same mountains, different life. As the lodge appeared between the trees, I expected panic. Instead, I felt grief, deep, old, manageable. Ruth met us outside. She hugged me. Then she looked at Caleb. You took long enough. He frowned. For what? She walked inside without answering. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the car. That night, Caleb and I sat on the back porch. The same porch where he had placed his rescue jacket on a chair almost a year earlier. The mountain beyond us was dark, my body remembered, but I stayed. Caleb did not ask whether I was okay every 5 minutes. He simply sat beside me. After a while I said, I used to think darkness meant something was waiting to happen. He looked toward the ridge. Sometimes something is. Engineer answer. Sorry. I smiled, then I rested my head against his shoulder. Tomorrow I want to see the trail. Okay. And the closure. Okay. And if I panic, we leave. That's simple. Yes. I closed my eyes. In my first life I had followed 2 people into the dark because I believed I needed their explanation. In this life I finally understood. I never needed to know why they chose betrayal strongly enough to die for the answer. I only needed to know what I would choose after seeing it, and this time I had chosen myself. The Black Hollow Trail looked smaller in daylight. That surprised me. Trauma had made it enormous in my memory, a whole mountain, a grave, a place powerful enough to divide 2 lives. In reality, the safe public trail was less than a mile long. Caleb walked beside me. Ruth came for the first section, then returned to the lodge. The air smelled like pine and cold stone. We reached the new barrier after 20 minutes. Beyond it, the old service road disappeared. Behind fencing and reclamation signs, farther uphill, hidden by trees, was the place where I had fallen in another life. My feet stopped. Caleb stopped too. He did not touch me. Nora. I remember this. His voice stayed calm. We can turn around. No. I moved closer to the barrier, not beyond it, never beyond it. There were rules now, real ones: steel fencing, concrete stabilization, bright signs. I almost laughed thinking about the faded chain Ethan had cut for a secret meeting. 1 stupid pair of bolt cutters, 1 selfish decision, 1 dark trail. In my first life it had been enough to kill me. I gripped the railing. For a moment memory returned so clearly that daylight disappeared. Chloe's voice. She saw us. Ethan, we can't explain this. My hands in the dirt, my throat raw from screaming. Then the second collapse. I closed my eyes. You left me. I whispered. Caleb said nothing. The words were not for him. They left me there. My voice broke. I know. I kept thinking they'd come back. My knees weakened. Caleb stepped closer. Can I touch you? I nodded. He put 1 arm around me. I cried, not elegantly, not quietly. I cried for the woman who died waiting for someone who had already chosen himself. I cried for the version of me who confused endurance with loyalty. I cried for 5 years lost with Caleb, for Chloe, for Ethan. For every moment I had ignored my own discomfort because somebody else called it insecurity. Eventually the tears slowed. Caleb handed me a tissue. I laughed wetly. You brought tissues. Ruth gave them to me. Of course she did. She also told me not to say anything stupid. Excellent advice. We stood there another minute. Then I looked beyond the barrier one final time. I'm done. Caleb's arm loosened. With the trail. With needing anything from what happened here. He studied my face. That sounds important. It feels quiet. Most important things do. We walked back. At the lodge Ruth had made soup. Apparently emotional closure required carbohydrates. We ate beside the windows. Later, Caleb and I returned to the porch. The sky was clear. Stars filled the dark space above the ridge. A year earlier, I had been afraid to look at those trees. Tonight, I could hear laughter from another group near the main fire pit. Safe, supervised, ordinary. My phone buzzed. Mateo, Wardenfield. Data came in. County team located a lost hiker in 18 minutes. Tell your mountain boyfriend we expect a formal thank you. I showed Caleb. Mountain boyfriend. You're lucky. He used to call you Rescue Batman. I prefer that. Absolutely not. I replied. Tell engineering congratulations. Also stop texting me on weekends. He answered no. I put the phone away. Caleb leaned back. Happy? The question made me think. A year earlier, happiness had seemed like a destination, a relationship, a promotion, a version of life where nobody betrayed me. Now I understood it differently. My mother used to say stability was underrated because people only noticed it after losing it. I finally understood her too. Yes, I said. Caleb looked at me. Really? Mostly. I'll take mostly. I smiled. What about you? Mostly? Excellent, we're very romantic. He reached into his jacket, my heart jumped. Caleb Rowan. What? If that's a ring, I am walking back inside. His eyes widened, then he pulled out a small flashlight. I stared, he started laughing. I hit his arm. You did that intentionally? I honestly didn't. You're terrible. Do you want the flashlight? No. He was still laughing when I leaned over and kissed him. A minute later he said, for the record, I am not proposing tonight. Good. Because Ruth threatened me. I pulled back. What? She said if I turned your return to Black Hollow into a proposal story, she'd push me off the porch. I burst out laughing. That woman is perfect. She also said you deserve one memory here that isn't attached to a man making your life about him. My laughter faded. I looked through the window toward the lodge kitchen. Ruth was pretending not to watch us. My throat tightened. Caleb took my hand. We can come back another year. Maybe. Or never. Maybe. No rules. I rested my head against him. No rules. 3 months later, Caleb did propose at home on a Tuesday. I was standing in the kitchen arguing with Mateo on speakerphone about certification labeling. Caleb waited until I hung up. Then he put a small box beside my coffee. I stared at it. Seriously? You said not at Kestrel Ridge. I did. You said you hate restaurants where everyone watches. I do. You said surprise. Parties should be illegal. They should. So? He looked almost nervous. That alone made me love him more. I opened the box. The ring was simple, a small oval stone, nothing enormous, nothing designed to prove anything. Before you answer, he said, I need to make one thing clear. I looked at him. I don't want to rescue you. My eyes burned. I know. I don't want you to need me. I know. I want a life where we keep choosing each other when neither of us is trapped. That did it. I started crying. He sighed. I should have brought Ruth's tissues. I laughed through the tears. Yes, 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 idiot. He kissed me later, lying beside him in the dark. I realized I was no longer afraid of darkness itself. Darkness had never betrayed me, people had, and people had also saved me. Ruth gave me a locked door. Mateo protected the truth in version histories and server logs. Diane made me slow down long enough for evidence to survive anger. Caleb answered a call after 5 years of silence, but none of them had created my second life for me. The first choice was mine. I had stayed inside. I had refused to chase. I had called for help instead of running toward people who had already proven they did not deserve me. That was the real difference, not rebirth choice. A year after my death, Black Hollow was sealed. Ethan was gone from Arclight. Chloe was gone from my life. Warden was helping rescue strangers. Caleb was asleep beside me. And for the first time in either lifetime, I did not need betrayal to be punished more than it already had been. They lost access to me. That was enough. I turned off the bedside lamp. The room became dark. Caleb shifted in his sleep and reached for my hand without waking. I smiled. Once, darkness had been the place where I waited for someone to come back. Now it was simply night, and I was already home.